video presented by the Commonwealth appears to show Karen Reed's Lexus entering the Canton Police Department Sallyport, with an irregularity to her right side taillight. The driver gets out of the passenger side seat. There are 9 significant cuts, totaling 9 minutes and 18 seconds removed from the video. The number 4 on the bay door and the words written on the rear of the police car are backwards. This video has clearly been edited to remove all of the portions that would show the officers gathered around and examining the actual rear right side tail light. Because if they didn't, it would have been obvious that the entire image has been flipped with the intention of deceiving the jury. This is the true orientation of the video. It's possible that this could all be blamed on user error if it weren't for 2 important facts. First, the timestamp should not be reversed when the video is oriented correctly, as we see here. This seems to indicate that it was added after the video was flipped. The video footage and the timestamp should both be correct or incorrect together, as it was presumably imprinted onto the video as it was recorded. And 2, why does there seem to be an issue with the left side tail light? No damage has ever been mentioned to that side of Karen's vehicle before. After examining this video, it appears the Commonwealth has tampered with the footage. The video has definitely been flipped, a new timestamp likely superimposed, with all clips showing officers examining the rear right side edited out, and the rear left tail light likely altered to radiate more white light.
What's up, folks? Welcome to the show tonight. I wanted to open with that Microdots clip about the taillight, that Sallyport video, because there's a new filing and everybody's here. Everyone wants to hear our guest on it tonight, and I'm wicked excited. It's been a lot going on. I don't even have my cell phone. I'm going to have to step up and grab my cell phone. I got to say, at 24 hours, I'm feeling a lot better about some stuff I can't talk about. I told you I was going to probably come back and talk about the defamation filing against me. I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I have something better for you, and I will get to that. And it's part of why I'm smiling, but I'm also smiling because of the show we got tonight. So let's bring them up. Let's bring up the guest, what you're here for. Mazza Media and attorney Mark Bederow. What's up, gentlemen?
What's going on? How you doing?
Doing great. I got to grab my cell phone. I'm beside myself. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Good.
Friday.
It's Friday night.
Friday night. Bederow is a little down about the Celtics.
They're a little mediocre for a little too long, and they've lost some games in the last week or two that are literally, one would think, are impossible to lose. I mean, just boneheaded, dumb by a championship team. It makes no sense. So yeah, a little down, but it's January. It's the mid-season doldrums. It's all right.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. Definitely tough to watch. Last night I watched about right until about the end of the third quarter. I said, TV's going off. It's time for bed. Enough of this.
Yeah, that last night's game was sponsored by the U.S. Postal Service. I mean, they nailed it in bad.
I'm glad I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
Pretty unwatchable.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound fun. Doesn't sound like Larry Bird. They would win every game. They would play through the whole season. You know what I mean? There would never be a down point.
Well, losing sucks, but they're the defending world champs, so it's okay.
Right.
It's all right. All right. Well, we got that out of the way. Let's talk about this filing, because this is major news. I mean, it's just so shocking. The Crawford name gets into it. I'm kind of upset about that. I'm just glad I have no relatives named Colleen Crawford. Jeez, but how do you want to get into this? What do you want to say? We'll start with Attorney Bederow.
I'm almost speechless in the sense that this is a case full of speechless moments, and the more you learn, the more you know. But what I find most interesting about this is many months ago, I guess after the first trial ended, I'm pretty sure I said to you that when saying what's going to happen in between the two trials, I do think it was with you guys. I said that one of the things I would expect is that they're going to make a big deal out of the Sallyport nonsense, that there is no way this is just going to sit and do nothing. And, clearly at this point it is boiled over, and it's a full-fledged fiasco. I mean, it really touches on everything. You had some video that was turned over before the first trial, which is missing critical timestamps that would presumably show the vehicle go into the garage, which is the issue in the case. Everybody knows about the video that was turned over mid-trial, which also was inverted and then testified to falsely, in my view, by Sergeant Buchanan until, the light went on in his head that he was kind of caught and developed amnesia about seeing himself and soon to be former Trooper Proctor. Now you realize that there is other video that was not turned over, which clearly was discoverable. There's a good faith argument. It could be deemed exculpatory depending on how the defense intends to use it. And then you realize that when they went back to try to get all of the original video, which presumably would clear up all of these messes, all the missing time, all of the inversions, everything, they send a guy out from Arizona only to find that there's nothing to see here. It's gone, and nobody knows where it is, and nobody knows how it was even documented, because if you look at the affidavit that was submitted as part of this, which is what you do when you submit motions like this, you include factual affidavits like they did. And there's this shocking statement by the people on the ground saying, we don't even know what happened to this video. We don't have any policies or procedures. We don't have any system of preserving a chain of custody. We don't know how it was saved. It was given to the defense lawyers, so go ask them. We don't know anything, so leave us alone. And it's just so symbolic of everything about this case. It goes hand in glove with solo cups, leaf blowers, stop and shop bags, not securing crime scenes. Because let's not kid ourselves, the Sallyport is a crime scene. That's where the vehicle would have been. It's where the taillight should have been. And they're missing critical video from that, and there's no way to retrieve it. And for a modern DA's office and modern police forces to not have done this properly, it's almost beyond belief. You wouldn't believe it unless you saw it, and here we are. It's apparently happened.
Yep.
It's shocking. It's not shocking, though. It's almost come to be expected, right?
Correct.
What do you think, Mazza?
I used to say unbelievable. I don't use the word unbelievable anymore. Instead, I use the term very believable, because that's what this has come to. It's just at this point now where every time you find out information like this, it's not a shock at all. It's you come to expect it, just like you just said a moment ago. You have an expert here sent by the defense to go review this information, and then he learns that basically this information was set to overwrite older video footage, video surveillance footage with new video surveillance footage after approximately 30 days. So it just so happens that video footage from the time frame back in January 2022 is nowhere to be found. And in this particular case, there's so much missing footage, whether that be local security footage from houses on Fairview Road, or library footage, and why not at the at any other location as well, including this DVR footage. It's absolutely what we've come to expect. Someone just took the words out of my mouth. It's par for the course, and this is not stuff that I am shocked by anymore. In fact, it just kind of proves Karen Read's innocence once again, and furthermore, and ultimately to the highest level. This is an absolute farce. It's been a farce, and the further we get, the more the onion unpeels. Does it get more and more ridiculous as it goes on? This thing should have never gone to the first trial and has no business going to a second trial.
I wonder if there's going to be new witnesses called based on what just happened. Do you think, Attorney Bederow, do you think they might call or they wouldn't call Colleen Crawford to the stand?
Well, I mean, I would back up about her as a trial witness as for the future. I think what's going to probably happen here is there's going to be a much more significant motion that's coming that you saw buried in the footnote. I mean, asking for $12,000 is symbolically important because it is a waste of money and time. And, you know, it's just what they did is inappropriate. But who's ever seen a motion where a defense with a straight face is asking to be reimbursed, asking the court to order reimbursement? But that tells you what this case is all about. But more importantly, they're going to file a motion to dismiss the indictment based on egregious misconduct in the form of just discovery violations that have continued before, during, and after the first trial. And as part of that, I would expect they're going to seek an evidentiary hearing and to develop a factual record, like you heard probably should have happened with the double jeopardy issue. And do I think that at a hearing that this other Crawford, not you obviously, might be a witness at that hearing? Absolutely. But the real star of the show is a guy named Adam Lally. He's the one that's going to really have to answer for this. He's the one, who knows where the bodies are buried, so to speak, figuratively speaking, of course, in the sense that he was responsible for the prosecution at all times in 2022. He's still on the team today, and he would know why a 30-day recording system in a case like this, why they didn't preserve it. He would know why certain video was not turned over before trial. He would know why video was turned over in the middle of trial, which is an egregious discovery violation in and of itself. And you remember this. I don't know why there wasn't a mistrial back then when they sandbagged them with that. He would know why the video is inverted. He must have shown that to Buchanan and other witnesses before the trial. He would know why all of this other video was not disclosed until after, October, this Higgins video. So he's going to have to answer for all of this. He's the guy. And what's interesting now is, for the first time in this entire case, you could be seeing a situation where the interests of the lead prosecutor start to diverge from the DA's office and put a crack in the armor and potentially lead to conflicts, because the lead prosecutor is not an employee of the DA's office. He wasn't around for these shenanigans, and he has a very well-established professional reputation and has an interest in maintaining that. He's not a career bureaucrat in the DA's office punching the clock, getting the same paycheck every 2 weeks. He's got to eat what he kills and earn, and reputation means everything. And now he's going to be in a position, when you're in the prosecutor's office, you have to defend the office. Well, is he going to defend this at the risk of his own credibility? Is he going to say, I don't know anything about this, which would also make the office look bad and has no legal significance, because the prosecutor is responsible for everything that happens in the DA's office, with the state police, with the Canton police. So he's going to have to defend this. And meanwhile, Adam Lally is sitting next to him, could be a witness at this hearing. And what happens if he believes that Adam Lally was up to some shenanigans or is not being honest? Was this intentional? Was it unintentional? I don't know. But this is messy.
Yeah, wicked messy. You brought up the number one, that the defense is asking for that money back for the expert, the travel, the hotel, the Ubers, the snacks, the whole thing. Is that going to happen?
No. I mean, look, I've never seen a situation where in a criminal case, a judge orders one party to pay another because there was no retrievable evidence. Now, again, the defense is strongly implying, or more than that, they're basically asserting that they were misled by the DA's office. Now, in all fairness, you haven't heard the response from the DA's office about their version of what happened. But do I think that the judge is going to get into a back and forth over whose fault this is, and I'm going to now order the government to pay the defense for a futile attempt to get evidence. No, I would say there is 0% chance. But what this is Act One. This is an opening salvo to a much larger motion that's coming that I would expect will be nuclear.
I'm glad that motion's coming, but personally, and I think as a community, it pisses me off if the allegations are true, because we all have raised money and given money for that defense, and the state is just taking that money and pissing it away. Like we donated, raised money so that she could get the evidence and she could have her experts, and this is just so infuriating that they pull this crap.
Well, they waste money in many ways. I mean, obviously, some would argue bringing this entire case, waste of money. Yeah. All the security that's needed outside the courthouse because of this, waste of money. The fact that you have a fully functional DA's office, yet have to pay outside counsel to try a case because no one in your office is either capable or willing, is a waste of taxpayer money. I mean, you could go on and on. They're also wasting, if the allegations in this motion are correct, certainly a lot of this is wasting Karen Reed's money. I mean, all of these hearings that have been held with bringing witnesses from California, hearings that were canceled before the first trial with witnesses from all around the country and other things. Yes, I mean, it definitely adds up. But do I think that the court is going to get involved in basically a small claims action or the equivalent thereof in terms of who gets money, Judge Judy style? No. But again, people should keep their eye on the ball. The real issue here is whether the Norfolk DA, which has an ethical obligation to honor its discovery obligations, disclose any exculpatory or any evidence that could be deemed exculpatory, preserve evidence of that nature. The defense is alleging that they have not done that it's systemic, that there's a pattern of misconduct that is so severe that it warrants dismissal. And I don't know if it'll get to that level where we're dismissing a murder case, but I think a very uncomfortable motion and potentially a extraordinarily awkward hearing at which, again, Lally will be the star witness is coming. And if it turns out that they did suppress evidence, which, I mean, clearly the Higgins video, I mean, that evidence was discoverable. It should have been disclosed. It should have been available for use of cross-examination. There should have been real video, not inverted video, that could have been used. There should have been an explanation for why they got inverted video. There should be an explanation for all the missing timestamps, why people are apparating in and out of the video. All of these things, why it just happens that when they did, in fact, invert the video, that it just so happens that the right taillight is now missing from the vehicle, along with the people who are over there taking a look at it. In the video that you played here tonight, very interesting. We've seen this before, but by all accounts, the left taillight is not an issue in the case. It never has been. No one's ever suggested anything about it, but what you now know is the left rear tail light, but which appeared to be the right rear tail light, looked to be cracked or shattered in that video based on the way the lighting was hitting it. And how did that happen? And was that meant to snooker the jury? I mean, there's a really strong argument. I'm not saying there's compelling evidence literally, but there is a strong inference to be drawn that was designed to mislead, that this was all designed to mislead. And if it turns out at an evidentiary hearing that the defense can satisfy a burden that the Norfolk DA's office deliberately withheld disclosing evidence that was favorable to the defense and then tampered with evidence that they disclosed and had Buchanan testify falsely about it, and the indictment is not dismissed, if they meet that burden, that's outrageous.
Would it be appealable later if Judge Canone said no to it? Is it possible?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be at some point that would be subject to appeal after a verdict. But honestly, if the defense meets that burden, I'm not saying they will or they won't, but if they can prove that there was a systemic non-disclosure of material evidence that favored the defense and that they tampered with evidence and may have falsified testimony about it, there isn't a court in America that would not dismiss that indictment. And if that didn't happen here, then you've got a real scandal, assuming that burden.
The real then Bederow's like the judge is in on it finally. You'll go there.
Then you would have me. But I mean, honestly, if they meet that burden, it would happen. I mean, whatever you guys think of the judge, if they
I'm with you, Bederow. I follow your lead. I think that's a safer thing to do.
if they meet that burden and the judge concludes that they met that burden, then the indictment is toast.
Mazza, what do you think about all this? This is just wild.
Yeah, these have been some of my thoughts while I've been listening here, and just things that have been coming to mind, and that's that the prosecution has displayed themselves as being on the defense dating back to the original pretrial. They have a history of withholding information. The defense has had to fight for everything from the beginning. The prosecution should be on the offensive, presenting every piece of information possible and at their disposal to make their case. It's notable that this information is coming out now, but it should have been out over a year ago. Once again, the defense seeks out information and evidence, and they are not provided with what they sought out. It's always a dogfight. When they do send an expert to retrieve that information, they are unable to be provided with it. It's a blatant cover-up. It's the blatant cover-up that we've long thought it to be. And this reading this doc here, this motion, and reading the details of it is just proves the absolute farce that this was. And good on Erickson for kind of sitting there and kind of checking them while he was there, actually asking pivotal questions to try to get more information out of it. Well, why is it missing? Why is it not here? Basically asking those key questions, not being, not walking in the door and saying, do you have the footage during the time frame that we need it? No, we don't. Well, okay, thank you. He doesn't do that. He actually stood there and stood his ground and asked some significant questions that are meant to basically pick apart people that are basically liars or deceivers, and did a great job. Looks like, Mark, you want to say something there? Or?
Yeah, just a couple of points to piggyback on what you said. When you said the defense is seeking out evidence, there's a really important distinction here when you're talking about exculpatory evidence. That is an affirmative obligation by the prosecutor as an officer of the court. They have an ethical obligation on their own to preserve evidence that reasonably could be seen to be exculpatory, or they know is exculpatory. The law is more favorable to the defense when they make what's called a specific request for exculpatory evidence. But whether that request is made or not, the obligation in the first instance is on the prosecutor. So whether the defense did nothing, the DA was obligated to do this. As far as the witness that you were mentioning, who you said held his ground, his affidavit is stunning in the sense that what it exposes, whether it's the Canton police, the individual in the DA's office, the IT person, or whoever, if you believe any of this, they're like the gang that can't shoot straight. I mean, it's embarrassing how they have no idea how the original came and went. They have no idea that what form it was given to the defense or the court. There are no records for them to check to see what was done. And what they're really telling you is that it's not a one-off. When you heard testimony at this trial about, we didn't secure a crime scene, we didn't put any tape out because the wind was going 7 miles an hour, stop and shop bags, solo cups, you could go on and on. This is the same thing. To not have a chain of custody for video evidence that the defense is going to now admit into trial was diddled with, all right? And it's going to fall right into their theory about there's some kind of cover-up or at least incompetence. I mean, there's in the best possible light in viewing it towards the DA, a just sheer, and by the DA, I mean the Canton police too. They're responsible for them, and the state police. Such a level of incompetence that they literally don't make a chain of custody or have any protocol for preserving any of this evidence, other than for them to say, well, we know it's a 30-day rewind. Well, they got some video because they did give some video to the defense before the trial. They did get some video during the trial, albeit, inverted, and they got some video after. So it begs the question, where did it come from? Why didn't you just copy the whole damn original within the 30 days, which they did, and look at it and turn it over? Why are there cuts that are like in that Microdots video? And what are they cutting out? I can make a guess. Can you? The car coming in and all these other things. Something is clearly off here, and it's coincidence after coincidence. It's the library video. It's the missing ring video. It's they don't knock on doors looking for other ring video. And either way, indictment dismissed or not, this is going to play into the defense hands, because they're going to marshal this with all the crime scene evidence and say, you can't trust what they're doing. And so the irony here is, for the trolls watching or listening or, screenshotting later, put aside for 5 minutes your hatred of Karen Reed and
Never.
just seriously play the game, whatever you think of her. Let's pretend for a few minutes she didn't cause cancer. She's not the cause of all the world problems. Just put it aside. But you have this belief that you think she's guilty, and put aside the burden of proof problems with all that. But fine, you think she's guilty. When you hear this evidence that's coming out in these motions and these allegations, the people that you should not be mad at are Alan Jackson and David Yannetti for being scumbag lawyers and saying anything. And no, the people you should be angry are Adam Lally, the Canton Police, the Massachusetts State Police. If you really think she's guilty and you want her to get convicted because you think the evidence is there, it is the investigators and prosecutors who kneecapped this case. This kind of crap is what kneecapped the case. So you really, whatever you think of Karen Reed, you should channel the anger to the proper people. And if you can't trust the prosecutors and cops to do the job competently, professionally, and ethically, then you need to get new people to do it.
Yeah, you know what's competence is when you send an expert in and something like that happens, he does an affidavit. I love that. That affidavit was so good. He just read that, and it was just first person account, Well,
so, that's yeah, and
like that's they're doing their job. That's like
that's the thing. I mean, I'm not impressed with that only because that's normal. That's what you're supposed
but
to
I
do.
mean that's what they're doing versus incompetence on the other side. Like you never see any affidavits from them, right? They have any affidavits going on?
Listen, the motions the recent motions, I think they did not have any factual support other than, the prosecutor, pinky promise.
Yeah.
Me. I don't know why that's the case. That's not normal when the way you don't write what they call brief affidavits, what lawyers disparagingly call brief affidavits. You need to support a motion with sworn allegations of fact, either based on firsthand knowledge if you have it, or on information and belief, the source of whatever, and you outline that, and that becomes the basis of the motion, and then you supplement it with a memorandum of law. What has happened, at various times throughout this case is, basically brief affidavits, which don't really satisfy the standard. Certainly not on the recent motion with, Dr. Russell and the one that's still pending with Richard Green. But I'm not sure why they did that. There must have been a reason. These are experienced lawyers on both sides. So this is not like a rookie mistake. I don't know why they did it the way they did it.
Look at this. We got some great comments from one of our heroes here, Joe Flipahead. Are we for the Birds or not? Are we for the Eagles? I want to see the Eagles win,
Bills,
so then they lose.
Bills and Commanders, but I had my money on the Chiefs dating back to the preseason, so I stand to gain a lot if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, even though I don't want them to win again.
Let's be honest.
Are you rooting? You think the Commanders are going to win against the Eagles, but who are you rooting for?
I think the Eagles are going to win. And
you do?
I'm picking the Eagles. I think the Commanders are the least likely team to go to the Super Bowl out of the four of them, but they might pull it off. But the Bills and Chiefs is going to be a dogfight right down to the end.
I hate the Eagles, but Joe, for you, but really for me, anybody but the Chiefs. And I think the Eagles have a much better chance than Washington. So in that way, I think in playing the odds, I'd rather have the Eagles. Obviously, if the Bills win, I mean, I wanted to see a Bills Lions, just to, the loser bowl of all time. But at this point, anybody but the Chiefs, anybody. I would.
Yeah.
My God, I would even almost consider like the Jets if that was a possibility. No, I wouldn't. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But for Joe, good for you.
Interesting
good
fact
for you.
here: if the Bills lose to the Chiefs, it would be their 4th consecutive loss in a row to the Chiefs in the playoffs, and that would not be the first time that the Bills lost 4 consecutive times before.
Yeah.
And something. Yeah.
4
Super
Super
Bowls.
Yeah, that was insane.
In a row.
I met him one night, Jimmy Kelly. He wasn't very friendly. Daytona
Really? Yeah.
Beach, we were at college. You used to go to spring break, and it was MTV lobby, and we met a bunch of celebrities that night. Troy Aikman was wicked cool. He was wasted, but he was very cool.
In law school, because I was in Syracuse, I went to a Bills game one time. It's different there. They are a different. I mean, they're not like the meatheads that the Philly crowd is.
Philly.
Philly, let's
They
be
have a
honest.
jail in Philly, don't they?
Philly is Neanderthals, and everyone's seen the footage after they won the Super Bowl of the idiot who ran face first into the beam in the subway. Because I mean, that's just classic Philly. But that they are some blue collar, hardcore Buffalo people, and the Bills matter to them so much. Like it, I mean, they're so important up there. To that, I mean, it's a miserable place in the winter, as you know.
Right.
It's what they have, and so for their sake, I hope the Bills do it.
I hope the Bills too.
Yep.
I think it would be good to see the Bills. But we'll see. Eagles, I'm kind of rooting for Joe and the Eagles, at least to get to the Super Bowl. We'll see what happens at
They
the
have an
Super Bowl.
extremely balanced football team. Saquon Barkley at running back has had one of the most phenomenal performances by a running back in a single season ever. It's up there with Eric Dickerson and Adrian Peterson. He's had a phenomenal season. The New York Giants fans still going to be kicking themselves that Saquon's over with the Eagles right now.
I'm kicking myself. I got smoked by him in my fantasy league.
Giants,
He kept beating me.
The Giants in one off season, obviously they lost Saquon Barkley, and they won a meaningless end of season game, which cost them the rights to basically Jaden Daniels in the draft. So, well done, New York Giants.
Excellent.
Unreal.
We also got another superstar here too. LTL Media kicked in some money for us tonight. He says, "What up, 3Ms?" He's recovering. He's been sick, and he just wants to let everyone know he's going to be back again soon. I hope he's had a rough run. He had that tooth thing, and now he's been sick. And so, best wishes to Brian.
Yep, absolutely, Brian. Get well.
He did the last show with us too. The 3Ms with us. He jumped on. That was great.
Yep.
I want to thank everyone. We got a lot of super chats coming in. I'm going to try to keep up with them as much as I can. There was one that came in that had a question about Trump, basically either freezing or stopping the civil rights division at the DOJ. Do you think that will affect anything that goes on with Karen Reed?
I am Trump free, good or bad. I'm not doing it because every time I say anything,
I know. I get it. Believe me. No matter which side, if you say anything, but do you think like if that were to happen, it might affect Karen Reed? I'm guessing, which is weird.
First of all, again, without the politics part of this, I don't know what it means that the president, whoever the president may be, would just stop the civil rights division of the Department of Justice. That makes no sense to me, irrespective of which party, who's president, whatever. You don't do that. I mean, you don't, because forget like Karen Reed stuff. Civil rights division of the Department of Justice includes police brutality, other things like that. You don't just like stop doing that. U.S. attorneys' offices under the DOJ Central in D.C., they function. U.S. attorneys come and go. They're political appointees. On a general level, they don't impact or influence what cases are being investigated or done, with certain rare exceptions. The business goes on. So I wouldn't. that can't be.
I hope not. And we don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that get said about Trump that turn out sometimes not to be true too. So I mean, we don't know. So that's what I'd say. Like, even like they were talking about the healthcare thing and the I think what is it, the insulin, and they're saying he's raised the prices. Turns out he didn't actually. He did a little minor thing. He stopped the further like research of it or something. So like a lot of stuff that gets reported turns out not to even be true. So I just think we should wait on that and see what happens. Brother Counsel, they're asking about this. Mr. Mark Bederow, have you watched Brother Counsel's live yet?
No.
They might be talking about last night. Did you see that?
No, but I mean, we did something together a long time ago, back when they used to invite me on STS or whatever it was. I think we did something together. I mean, I'm certainly aware there was a show on last night. To be honest, I don't watch The Guy in the Attic or Peter. So respectfully, that does nothing for me. So people are certainly free to do it, and I'm sure there's a lot of mixed opinions about that. But that's not my bag.
Me neither. I got kind of mad too, and I tried to watch it. It just gave me a headache. But I watched a little more this morning, and I think he actually did a good job. I mean, I like Brother Counsel. I think he's a good guy. I just don't. I wish he hadn't like put them on, but he actually did it because he's so patient, and he showed how trashy they are. Like they talked over him. They sound like fools. He did a good job.
I mean, people can agree or disagree. Yeah. It's fine. I don't believe in platforming people like that, and I don't believe in raising their profile and playing their games and getting into the gutter. It's just.
That's the issue. That's why they're not welcome here. I mean, I know Mazza's not going to talk to them either. Have them on, and that's not having them on your show either, right, Mazza?
There's no chance. Yeah. There's no chance that's ever happening.
I can understand why others would be fascinated and encourage it. I mean, I would at any time be happy to talk to people that I believed were serious and without personal attacks to debate issues, but they're not that. So
that's the issue too. Cause like, I know Brother Counsel wanted, like he was trying to find someone like that. Like we all have been. I would love to have a serious attorney on here to, debate with Bederow about some of these topics, but there isn't anybody. There's not anybody who's serious on that side. So he was left to these two jokers, and that that's when you just kind of have to draw the line, I think, but it's his call. I'm not going to bash the guy.
People can agree to disagree, but I mean, I have no interest in watching or even discussing.
Yeah, and regardless of whomever they may or may not be on the other side of the belief system here, I just don't respect anybody in general that thinks Karen Read is guilty, because there's just no basis to prove that she is guilty in the first place. And I just don't respect. I just don't. Usually, a lot of people say, "Well, be objective, see things from both sides." I mean, yeah, I can, but there's just no way Karen Read's guilty, not in this reality.
I would listen to anyone and say, go ahead, convince me. And I'm open-minded to that. The problem is, and this is what triggers so many people, if they're not, and I'm repeating myself, but it bears repeating, if they're not going to consider it through the lens of what reasonable doubt means and what evidence is and what evidence isn't considered in a reasonable doubt concept, then I don't think it's worth discussing with anyone, because you can't say, well, I think someone's guilty, so therefore they are. Okay, what's the evidence? And that's fine. And then when you start saying evidence, there could be some evidence that they believe supports their position, but you can't just wish away the evidence that may tend to show reasonable doubt and say that it doesn't matter. And if they're not going to factor that in and do it under due process and the American system, then I think you're wasting your breath. I mean, I felt compelled this morning to just do one of these stupid tweets and say reasonable doubt is not a difficult concept. I mean, there were people online trying to say you're not allowed to consider one fact without thinking this. And it makes me want to pull what little hair I have out, because reasonable doubt, of course it can be one fact.
Absolutely.
it can be anything. And by the way, it came up in the context, though. The one thing I did see about apparently this discussion they were having last night, because I saw it on Twitter, not on the show, but not surprisingly, an educated, experienced lawyer was opining that ARCA alone is reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Like I told you, like 9 months ago and 8 months ago and 7 months ago, absolutely. That is absolutely reasonable doubt. And these people were attacking that opinion that he was professing by saying that violates the law and doesn't consider this. And this is one of the reasons why people like me, generally speaking, not this case with this judge, say bench trials can be good. Because to have
these people get on juries, unfortunately,
possibly mean what they say. I mean, this has to be trolling. It has to be nonsense. But I wouldn't talk to any of these people if they're not going to take the arguments that you offer and explain how that doesn't potentially add reasonable doubt. And of course, in this case, you can take pebble after pebble after pebble, fact after fact after fact, put it on the scale, and any reasonable doubt will do it. I mean, you can think somebody is very likely guilty. That's not guilty. You can think I'm really, really believe strongly that she's guilty. Legally, that's not guilty. And in Massachusetts, they have this absurd moral certainty, which, by the way, that's a bad break for the prosecution. I mean, that's crazy.
That's tough.
2025. Yeah. I mean, I understand, it's the state of the Puritans and all that. And, when they dunk witches and all of that, they want to make sure you're dunking the right witch. So, and they bring religion into everything. But I mean, I don't know any other state. I mean, it could be wrong. Obviously, New York is not one of them, what I know, that still uses that standard. I mean, that's
moral certainty.
Certainty. I mean, that's ridiculous. But in any event, I don't debate with these people if they're not even going to try to tell me why these facts don't matter. Because what they're really doing is saying, I think she's guilty. It doesn't matter what you're going to tell me. I say she's guilty. I think she probably did it, so therefore she's guilty, which, that works on Twitter, but not in a courtroom, unfortunately, for those people.
And there's only one piece of evidence that they would ever need to put Karen Read behind bars. There's only one piece of evidence that would need to ever be displayed, which is actual footage of Karen backing into John O'Keefe. And that footage does not exist. And I'm sure that if that evidence did exist, that proved she was guilty, that the prosecution would not only be presenting that information, but they'd be laboring that point to no end and that video to no end in court.
I would, in a summation, when you're going through all these things we talked about earlier, how, there's no chain of custody, there's no crime scene, there's no this, there's no that, there's no video, the butt dials, you could go on and on. But if you really wanted to dumb this down to one thing that is important, but you probably don't focus on as the most important, you could look the jury in the eye and say, all they had to do, literally one thing, in this case would be done, and they didn't do it. You have to ask yourself why. All they had to do, that corrupt, disgraced, soon-to-be terminated state trooper, all he had to do was pick this up, turn on his camera, go up to the taillight, get the metadata, and say click. And if that taillight was all destroyed the way they claimed it was later, at that time, at that place, it's over.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a trained investigator doesn't do that. And again, and I saw, again, why do I ever look at Twitter? Well, it is humorous at times. There are people who are like, well, because there was snow on the lens, and well, okay. What you could do is take a picture with the snow on the lens. You could have your other buddy videotape you, I don't know, wiping the snow off the lens and taking another picture or taking a video, and you have it all. But all that nonsense aside, there's so much reasonable doubt. There's so much poor investigation. There's so many things they didn't do. And these people don't want to think about that. What they want to do is say, this motion doesn't matter because,
she's guilty.
Alan Jackson had cross-examined Higgins about a phone call he made, a butt dial. So he knew and didn't care about the 134 phone call. And, you sit there and you say, well, maybe, I don't know. But, we didn't know what he was doing at the police station. We don't know what his demeanor was. We don't know what phone he used. He had 2 phones, if you remember. He had a federal phone and he had his personal phone. You also he went and got help adjusting his phone calls. I don't know what's on the call log that they were using at that case, how accurate it is or isn't. I mean, they get focused on everything that is, lawyer, scummy, client, dirtbag, therefore guilty. And that's just not how it works. It only works on Twitter, not in the real world.
I wonder who he was calling, or talking to. That's going to be
when
he's on. Yeah.
It's an hour after, in theory, if you credit the prosecution. I mean, there is a body lying on the lawn that is probably in advanced stage of close to death. If you buy what they're saying, it would have been about an hour later. He's drunk as a skunk and decides, I have to go to the police station to move cars. Okay, fine. I think we know that he did, in fact, move cars, but I think that's kind of a ruse as to why he got there. But the more important thing is, why was he making phone calls from there?
Yeah.
The
only person I would think I would ever call at 1:30 in the morning is my girlfriend. Like, that is like, if I was like late and saying, I'm coming home, I'm on my way, I'll be there. You know what I mean? That's the only person I could think I've ever called. Who the hell is he calling at 1:30 in the morning?
He's now going to have to explain that, or that's the problem is, and he already had a rocky go the first time around. Was it Brian Albert? Was it Berkowitz? Given that he's in Canton, who knows? I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see what turns out and whether they now try to make an application for more phone records. Who knows? But this is evidence that the defense should have had access to when they were cross-examining, not just the fact that he's on the phone call, the video, everything. And they didn't have it. It existed. It should have been disclosed, and it wasn't. So right out of the gate, that's a clear discovery violation. On top of everything else that we talked about the video in there, there's no way to spin this. This is not good for the prosecution. And if nothing else, what comes from this, they have these various charges that you can get in every state, even in Massachusetts, what they call these, getting an adverse inference, where a certain piece of evidence, the jury's instructed that you may find that this would favor the defense. You don't have to, but you may, because the prosecution didn't do something. Sometimes you see it in what's called a missing witness charge. They don't call a witness they should call. You may, draw an inference that they didn't call them because it would have favored the defense. Well, there's a missing evidence charge too, which Massachusetts has, like most other states. And if the court concludes that there's, relevant material evidence that ought to have been disclosed but was destroyed, even inadvertently, even without a purpose, and that it might have favored the defense is going to be entitled to that charge, where the jury would be instructed, you may find, if you want, that evidence would have favored the defense. And the problem the prosecution has is when you have skilled lawyers like these guys, they don't argue in a vacuum. They marshal the evidence. And this goes perfectly together with the lack of chain of custody, the solo cups, not investigating, not looking for ring camera, not, doing anything that you would expect, taking pictures, a seasoned investigator being honest to the process to do. And there comes a point where juries throw up their hands and say, I don't know what happened here, but I'm not finding her guilty. I'm not doing her if the cops didn't even try to give him justice. And in that situation, that's not getting off on a technicality. You're blaming the wrong people, okay?
The evidence, lack of it, that's the
pleaded not
prosecutor.
guilty. She's entitled to demand that she's not guilty. She's entitled to a fair trial. She's entitled to be found not guilty unless she's found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And the blame here goes to the prosecutors, the state police, the Canton police, and perhaps some of these witnesses, but like they really should rechannel their anger if they think that John O'Keefe is not getting justice. That's fine, but you can't equate justice for John O'Keefe with a particular person being found not guilty if the evidence doesn't support their guilt. That does work in the old Soviet Union, communist China, in places like that. But in America, you have to be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt after getting a fair trial. That's how the system works. It is what it is.
Right. And reasonable doubt is all over the place. There's actually more reasonable doubt than there was recovered shattered taillight at the crime scene, for that matter. It's all over the place. It's just nothing but a total farce. One thing I wanted to add here was off the motion. I just want to read this verbatim. As detailed above, there's significant evidence that the DVR footage provided to the defense and shown at trial was altered. The fact that the original DVR footage is now permanently unavailable hinders Miss Reed's ability to demonstrate the differences between the original footage and the footage provided to defense and shown at trial, differences suggesting footage was tampered with or otherwise altered, and deprives her of critical evidence about how those differences came to be. Do you have a thought on that, Attorney Bederow?
Yeah, that is a critical point, and a well-reasoned and well-argued one about prejudice. And that's the key in a Brady violation and these kinds of motions. The more prejudice that the defense suffers, the worse it is, the stronger the argument is for severe sanctions, which, in certain cases can be including a dismissal of the indictment. I mean, that's the ultimate sanction. I mean, that's the death penalty of the case, right? And in this particular case, the defense is that there were strange things going on, either in the form of choosing not to investigate, using false evidence, some kind of cover up. And if the defense had access to the original video and could demonstrate that it had in fact been tampered with in the first instance, that would show corruption, and that would substantially favor the defense. But there's a second point, the substantive value of the original. The original could also show the car actually coming in with a perfectly intact taillight or close to it, or not what they claim it is. So it's a double whammy of prejudice. You're depriving us of actual substantive exculpatory evidence, which shows that I'm factually innocent of the crime, and you're depriving me of substantial exculpatory evidence, which shows that you tampered with evidence, which, if that's true, I mean, you couldn't have a more guilty conscience, right? Why would the prosecutor do that? Why would the police do that if they had a strong case and she was guilty? So their prejudice argument is going to be strong, notwithstanding what the Twitter lawyers are going to tell you.
Yeah.
How is that presented? Like you talked about, that's inference of, you can infer it would have been good for the defense. Is that like the defense lawyer saying that, or is that Judge Bev saying it, instructing it? How does that work?
What happens is, at the end of a trial, you have something called the charge conference before the summations, because in summation, you're going to say whatever you're allowed to say. And you go over, what am I telling the jury? And there are many standard instructions, the elements of a crime, reasonable doubt, the defendant not testifying if that's the case. And then the parties try to submit other things that they think the jury should be charged with. If you recall at the first trial, the DA with that ridiculous suggestion that there ought to have been a consciousness of guilt charge, that the jury should have been told that by Karen Reed taking comfort in her parents in a time of tragedy, she was fleeing the crime scene, and that was a consciousness of guilt. That was embarrassing. That was ridiculous. But what would happen is the defense would argue at that point that there ought to be a missing evidence charge. And if that's the case, and they're going to get it in their summation, the defense would say, you're going to be told by the judge that you can draw an adverse inference. And they would say, here's why you should do it. And they're going to talk, again, the key is not just about the Sally port. They're going to talk about, and the Ring camera you don't have, and the missing library, and this, and that, and go on, and say, are you satisfied? Should you give them the benefit of the doubt, or should you draw an adverse inference about why don't we have this evidence? And by the way, the guy, what role did Proctor play in that? The guy who sent the text messages. You could go on and on and on, and you could see how this would spiral out of control for the prosecution, and they're just going to be stuck.
Absolutely.
So this motion that's going to get filed, like that's already been filed, and the motion to dismiss, even if it's not granted, it's going to move the needle substantially for the defense at trial, because they have the Higgins video. He's going to get grilled with that.
Exactly. I can't wait for that.
They have the evidence that the original is gone. You asked the question earlier, would you call witnesses? Absolutely. You're calling witnesses from the Canton police potentially. You're calling, you could make an argument Lally's a trial witness.
That's right.
I mean, I said that months ago to you
about that inverted video. Yeah.
When he got himself mixed up in that, I don't know what him and Buchanan talked about. Yeah. They shouldn't have to rely on Buchanan saying that. I mean, Lally may very well find himself with the defense arguing that he should be disqualified as a witness. If he's a witness at the hearing, then, Brennan has a really difficult choice. Again, what do I do? Am I looking out for number one, or am I looking out for this case, or am I defending the office? Their interests are divergent potentially.
Yeah, and he still gets paid too. Like if all of a sudden he just said, it's over, he's still getting his money, right?
I'm not suggesting he shouldn't. What I'm saying is,
so it doesn't matter to him.
We are in such crazy la land of prosecution that you have the rare case again where you have a ringer brought in not on a conflict, but to work with the prosecutor, the very prosecutor whose conduct is going to be central to the motion to dismiss. And the key point here is that the lead prosecutor does not work in that office. His reputation will matter to his earning capacity, his future after this case. And the question is he loyal to the DA's office, or does he need to be loyal to his own credibility and reputation, which could lead him then to basically?
Yeah. I mean, if they're together, it works. But once they're, because I mean that is such a good point you brought up.
You really have an absolute conflict here, okay? Because obviously, if it's in his interest to go after the DA's office, well, you have a conflict because Morrissey's paying him essentially, not literally, but he vouched for him and hired him for this engagement, and you're now going after, your client, if that's what he does. On the other hand, if he doesn't do that and he risks his reputation, he may not want to do that.
Yeah, he could just fold it up. I mean,
you should not assume that the private citizen in private practice who's being paid to help the DA's office has the same interests at this point with the prosecutor that's sitting next to him.
Yeah. He doesn't have a state pension.
Whose conduct may very well be improper, either negligent or reckless, or even worse, intentional. Don't underestimate the possibility of a conflict here.
Totally. That makes so much sense that they could be conflicted in this. That's one of the weakest things about this for the prosecution.
I'm saying the one who could be conflicted would be Brennan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's up for him in his mind to make,
Why does he want to go down with this? He's got like you said, private practice. He doesn't have a state pension. Lally's trying to probably protect the state pension. Brennan's got nothing to protect. He got paid.
But it's even worse than that.
His reputation, yeah.
No, but it is worse than that. But the other thing is this: he has nothing to do with the misconduct here. I mean, he wasn't here when these shenanigans happened. Okay, he disclosed the video that has Hayden. Okay, so and let's be fair is fair. No one, certainly not me. I'm not suggesting he's done anything.
No.
Yeah. And I don't know.
It seems like he actually did the right thing in this situation. But it already seems like there is that conflict. So
does he do if he knows or has reason to know? But the guy next to me, who is in the DA's office, who is my colleague, and who works for the boss who's paying me and hired me, now you have.
Yeah, totally. I could totally see this, and it's already happened. Like you said, it's already.
Because it's no defense. Hold on. Let's be clear. You are responsible for the entire office as a prosecutor and the police. Their conduct is imputed to you. So when you talk about a Brady violation, it doesn't matter that the prosecutor may be ignorant of it. If the cops did it, you're responsible. So you could have a situation where Brendan knows absolutely nothing about it. Okay. But he can't make an argument in court and say, hey, whatever happened, I don't know anything about it, because the DA's office will still suffer the penalty. You could still have the indictment dismissed. That's not that's a frivolous legal argument unless you're going to basically throw them under the bus. Okay. It's no defense to say, I didn't do anything wrong. The misconduct here is if it exists. I mean, they haven't even responded to this motion. So let's be fair. They get to respond. And when they get a motion to dismiss, they can argue all they want. But if the misconduct here is the Canton police, the Massachusetts State Police, potentially Lally, Brendan's responsible for all of that, even if he's in the dark about all of it.
Wow, because he has a responsibility to find out and know. Is that kind of what it is?
Well, he's certainly that, but he can't. It's not a legal argument to say I didn't know, because it's still. I mean,
it's
at the end of the day, the prosecution is the prosecution is the prosecution, and any misconduct, any Brady violations, any knowledge is imputed up and down the chain to information that is in their possession, custody, and control. And information that is possessed by the police is still within the DA's possession, custody, or control.
Wow. We had a couple Celtics comments.
All right. Always.
This one says, Mr. Bederow needs to follow my son. He covers the Celtics on NBC Sports Boston. You got to say the son's name. You got to know who he is.
Right.
How can we follow if you don't know? You got to tell us, Kimba. And we also had this one about
big fan of Abby Chin.
Yeah, we got this Celtics comment too. Say, so glad you're all back. I live in Texas and work with former Celtics player Robert Williams. Not Robert Williams. Robert Williams' aunt.
Yeah, right.
And she has told me that he follows the Karen Reed podcasters and the Karen Reed stuff.
The Time Lord?
Robert Williams is listening. I don't
Robert
know.
Williams III. I miss him. He was
when he broke the rim in Denver that night. Remember that Sunday night where he broke the rim and it took like an hour for the game to get back?
I remember that. Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm glad he watches. I feel bad for him and Marcus Smart when they got sent out and then boom, they win. But we love Robert. I would love that.
He was a great player for us. Great draft pick. Marcus Smart too, for that matter.
He's what you want like Keita to be, but that's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Phenomenal. We got you talk about the Celtics and all the Celtics comments come up. It's pretty wild. Trying to think. There were some other things I wanted to get to, and I'm drawing a blank right now, but I'm also looking at the super chats. Mazza, do you have any questions that you haven't asked tonight or any comments you want to make?
I just want this whole thing to end because I'm just eager to see what Karen and her team are going to do once this case gets thrown out or she's not guilty one day, because I can't imagine the amount of lawsuits that they're going to start throwing at various entities such as the Canton Police Department, State Police, Norfolk County. I mean, I can't imagine where the lawsuits would begin and where they'd end. But that's going to, is that possibly one of the reasons why they don't want her to ever get acquitted of this? Why they don't want to drop those charges? It's not that they're afraid of, they obviously know they're never going to put her behind bars. I mean, they know that. They belabored the point. They've been fighting in a losing battle for quite a few years now. But beyond that, once Karen's free of all this, I mean, if they basically in early July, if they had acquitted her of all charges, not guilty on all three counts, right now, we wouldn't be talking about a second trial. We'd be talking about all the lawsuits that Karen would be filing, which would be incredible to watch. Because like I said, I don't know where she'd start and where it would end, but it would be a free for all, and a lot of people would have a lot of answering to do, and Karen would be entitled to quite a bit of compensation. Go ahead, Mark.
I will tell you this, and I never like to think of civil litigation when a client is facing life in prison. Obviously, you have to keep your eye on the ball, but we're not directly involved, so we can afford to do this exercise. What I will tell you is this: this motion that's coming up, if this indictment is dismissed due to intentional suppression of exculpatory evidence, which would be an egregious due process violation. Brady is a due process thing. That's a constitutional violation. That's a deprivation of your civil rights. The what they call a 1983 action, a 42 USC 1983 civil lawsuit. If it turns out that this case is exposed as not only a bad case with no evidence, but that she was framed, and I'm saying again, I'm talking proving, not just alleging, that evidence was manipulated, witnesses perjured themselves, video was deliberately switched or whatever. The dollar figures in this lawsuit will be astronomical if that were to happen, because the only thing that would be worse from a dollar standpoint is if it came to light, as often happens when you have, people who don't have access to great trial lawyers like she does. You discover this from a prison cell, which is obviously even worse damages because of the idea of, on the other hand, they've destroyed her reputation, they've destroyed her ability to work, and whatnot. But I hate getting ahead of it too much, but it will be astronomical if that's ultimately the basis for the lawsuit.
Yep.
Be wild to see that.
Oh, yeah.
That would be millions of dollars we're talking
and the taxpayers, muzzle tov, you'll all be responsible for that.
Oh.
on our dime, like everything else. Unbelievable.
And of course, what you'll see if that were to happen, if you think, and I don't know what the government is doing, investigating, I have no knowledge or opinion, I just don't know. But if there was some kind of proof that either the Canton police, the state police, the Norfolk DA, or some combination of some or all of them did in fact do this, then the floodgates for further investigation will open up a lot more than they already are now. And, look, you already have the Birchmore thing, the horrible, horrible thing. But, if they're caught with their hand in the cookie jar, literally manufacturing evidence or deleting evidence, whatever it is with this Sally Port video nonsense, they're screwed.
Absolutely. We had a question about, we had quite a few questions I should get up here. Here's one. It says, am I wrong in my recollection that Higgins professed he moved vehicles? Does this testimony contradict that?
So my in all interest, I don't review the trial transcripts. I don't read this stuff 20 hours a day like a lot of people do. I have a generally good memory, but I don't study up for these podcasts by looking at, I read a motion
every detail, yeah.
But I do have a recollection, and people will correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure he did move the vehicles. And I think the way the timeline would work here is that it would have been after the phone call, which probably, again, makes it look worse for him, because if there's video of him inside the Canton police, I don't know why he would have to go inside other than
the timeline is off. That's what I saw on that too. Timeline is off.
He's making phone calls, and then he's moving cars, and I know he moved his own timeline. Then you have the butt dials with him and everything else. He's going to have a much rougher go. And don't forget the other thing. Again, there were so many facts, you lose track of them all. The other thing that Higgins is going to have to deal with for round two, which is going to be very unpleasant for him, and again, master lawyers cross-examining, and you in your mind, you're like, you can't wait to see this, because here's how I would do this. I wonder how they're going to do this. The video from the waterfall, okay? The cross-examination at trial two is not going to be Brian Higgins and Brian Albert groping and humping each other. That's interesting on some level. I don't know what it means. It's pretty weird, but the thing going on with Higgins and Albert, and again, with the text messages, he's going to get severely and aggressively cross-examined about that, because he also testified, I left without any incident, I understand he left without a fight or anything, but anybody can see that there was pointing, almost like peacocks, like sticking their stuff out. And,
right.
John looked, as I recall, either bemused or befuddled, or like, are you serious right now?
Yeah. Right.
You have the text messages that he was sending Karen Reed. You have, are you coming over here, with like 3 exclamation points to John O'Keefe, which that's aggressive. That's impatience. That's, men don't text each other that kind of stuff and then use multiple exclamation points unless you're pissed. So he wanted to see him again shortly after he pointed him. Now, what was going on? Why was he on the phone an hour after she allegedly ran him over? Why was he at the Canton Police Department at all? Was he talking to the people there? Was he monitoring communications? I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out what he said. But, you look at this stuff and what was filed yesterday, we're talking about the trial problems that the DA is going to have, but, we're jumping the gun. They're going to have a real problem when that motion drops and the defense demands an evidentiary hearing, and there's no way they're not going to get it. Lally isn't going to satisfy avoiding this hearing by submitting an affirmation in which he says, I didn't do anything wrong. There's too many oddities here that are going to enable the defense to have the right to explore this issue further and take evidence. So going to be something else.
Yep. That's not a good look, having that on that security cam footage in the waterfall either way. But he's basically pointing the finger like he's a pro wrestler, making a threat. It just looks very cartoonish, and it's evidence of a conflict. And when there's accusations that someone inside the house, accusations that John went inside the house and that one or more may have contributed to that beating and later, dispersing him on the front lawn, is a lot of answering that he would have to do for that on the stand.
It is, and it's even worse because while this is all happening, he's also text messaging, or right around that time was text messaging her, looking for affection, and she's blowing him off. Right? Their game is over, or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And again, this goes back to the people, the Twitter lawyers who get upset, and they'll here come the tinfoil hats, pinning it on Higgins and this and that. And if you're going to post the clip on the internet, post the whole thing. What I'm about to say, reasonable doubt. Okay, I'm not accusing Higgins of anything. I don't know what he did or not.
Right.
The point that we're talking about now is supported by evidence. It's not irrational, okay? There's clearly conflict between John and Higgins at the bar. There's clearly Higgins being jealous about Karen. John is Karen's boyfriend. Higgins is getting blown off. Put that to the jurors with everything else going on, the butt dials, the phone call at, the club, him tossing his phone before the preservation. I could go on. And you say, is this creating some doubt? And we're not talking about ARCA. We're not talking about all the other stuff. Nobody's mentioned Proctor right now. This point with Higgins, it leads potentially to doubt. It doesn't have to be true, but the point is, can the prosecution dismiss this entirely? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of questions about this Colleen Crawford. There was one question asking, do you think it was weird that she was there when this expert showed up and then pretended not to know he was going to be there? And then there's also a report from Aidan Carney basically saying that she made some statements about Karen Reed in texts. What do you think about that stuff?
Well, any employee of the DA's office who has made their conduct central to a key issue in the case, who has demonstrated an actual bias against the defendant, if that's true, that's bad. That it's unprofessional, obviously. But if that's true, I don't know. Is it weird that she was there at the Canton Police to observe this procedure? No, she's the IT guy. I would think that she would be there. When she claims, I had no knowledge of what's going on, and that makes no sense to me, let's be honest. But I don't find it's weird necessarily that she was there. But what I find weird is that someone else was not there, and that would be someone higher up in the DA's office. It doesn't have to be Brennan, doesn't even have to be Lally, although Lally would be a bad person to have there because he's a central party to this, really. But I would think you would want someone there to supervise the process, make sure it's going well, and just keep an accurate record of what's going on. What they've done now is they've put the DA IT woman, who allegedly has personal bias against Karen Reed, right into the middle of this too. And I don't think anybody foresaw that when they said, you know what, you're going to go to the Canton police and just watch them try to, play with video that we all know doesn't exist, apparently.
Comment actually. There is no legal reason the sidebar should be under seal. I want to see some of those arguments. What do you say to that?
Listen, you may remember this. The inverted video to me has always been a huge thing. Always, from way back when. And you may recall, I said they must go. They got to get up tomorrow and go nuts, demand a mistrial, get your money's worth. And I don't know if they ever did or didn't, but I do know they went to sidebar. And maybe that's where they did it. I don't know. But I don't know why that motion should be secreted from the public. Okay. There is a presumption of openness under the First Amendment. Court proceedings are public unless there's a reason not to be. And if her lawyers got up and threw a shit fit over just an egregious discovery violation on two bases, one, belated discovery, which sandbags the defense, and then moreover, false evidence, essentially. And they don't get the right to make that argument in open court. There's no reason for that not to be an open court, and there's no reason for the judge not to rule and explain her reasoning in open court. That's not the kind of thing that should be, off the record. I'm learning, Massachusetts, everything is off the record.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Concept of impoundment. It's just if you ask for it, it happens. That's not how we do it here. I can tell you that. Most judges would say, I'm not sealing anything. Give me a reason.
They seal everything.
In New York, we have something called the criminal procedure law, the CPL. There's a list of reasons for sealing things. If you satisfy it, you do it. So I don't know. I don't like all the sidebars being under seal unless there's a reason, unless they're referencing inadmissible evidence or something related to somebody's health or something like that. But just a general motion for a mistrial or something similar, there's absolutely no reason for that to be not part of the public record.
Right. What is it that they're trying to hide? What is it they don't want to reveal? And it only, when people say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, well, if you want to say that, okay, fine, but these are the reasons why you might think that, because these are the questions I start to ask when things are sealed like this and they're not revealed for people to see. What is there? What don't you want us to see? Why has it been sealed for so long? Just raises questions. It raises eyebrows. It does.
It does. Yeah. No,
secrecy does. That's what secrecy does. Yeah.
And there is a First Amendment right for public trials, again, with certain exceptions, but there is a presumption of public, and a legal argument about a mistrial based upon our belief that they turned over discovery late and may have even turned over, tampered with evidence. There's no reason. It's very simple. You tell the jury to leave and say, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, but still do it in public so we can see it. Because this, you kind of answered this one too, but little second part of it, they said, I still don't understand why the defense didn't protest more when the Verdi Sally Port video was shown. I mean, we don't know. That's the point. It seems like they did, right?
I don't know. All I can tell you is what I told you back then. That is a get out of your chair moment, clear the courtroom with the jury, and you let it all out, because the basis for the mistrial is multi-tiered in that situation. That is an egregious, forget Brady for a minute. Brady relates to favorable evidence, which is worse. But before you even get to that, the Sally Port video should have been disclosed well before trial. They sandbagged them. They just, they dump in the middle of trial and say, here you go. Right. So that's bad enough. But when it turns out that the video is inverted, so it's not even, it appears to be designed to mislead. It's concealing the relevant taillight. It's concealing Proctor in the vicinity of the taillight. There's other parts that are missing. Well, now it's exculpatory. You had Buchanan testify it was a fair and accurate depiction. It wasn't. You had him confidently say that was me and Proctor when he thought the jury was along for the ride, that it was, a legitimate video, but then he developed amnesia when it was pretty clear it wasn't. That is a ground ball mistrial. That I don't know what they did, and I don't know what the ruling was, that absolutely requires a mistrial. And at that point, if that had been a mistrial based on misconduct, which it would have been, there would not have been a retrial, because there would be no manifest necessity, which is the legal standard for this kind of thing. That would be a mistrial caused by the prosecutor's deliberate misconduct. And what a judge in that situation should have done is say, goodbye, Miss Reed, you're free to go.
That's right.
And say, and then the next question is, is anybody filing complaints with, whatever they call it in Massachusetts, the BBO, about this or not? Right. And that's it. So
that's the general concern, though, is sorry, Mark, to interject, but that's the level of outrage throughout all of this, is that these kinds of things, like just what you just said, this should be basically thrown out on the spot. And that's the argument that, you and everyone else has made for so long, is that the obvious happens. It's blatantly obvious that something's afoot here, and that this case should be thrown out for a particular reason. And then right in front of everybody, where all the local internet news or whomever are covering this, streaming it on YouTube, playing it on television, this happens right in plain sight. And then the case just goes on like, you didn't see that. Let's just continue moving on. Continue on with the trial. That's such a frustrating point, and it only fuels a cover-up and frame job belief system from people that are free Karen Reed, because that's the kind of stuff. You're an attorney, a great attorney, and this is what you're saying. You said that this should have been declared a mistrial, probably 100 times out of 100. And then this happens right in front of the court in the middle of a trial, and they just continue on like nothing happened. This is the level of outrage that we've had for so long. And it's sickening that this trial not only continued, but ended inconclusively and is now pressing towards a second trial. It's absolutely outrageous, and it's a total farce, Mark.
Yeah, no, I mean, there is sandbagging in discovery, and then there is sandbagging. Yeah. And what happened with the video in this case, the drip, drip, drip of disclosure and the missing parts, is the quintessential sandbagging. It really leads to more questions than answers, which is, what is wrong with this DA's office? Why are they incapable of just simply following their obligation to disclose discoverable and exculpatory evidence? And again, we're talking about video evidence of a Sally Port where they took the alleged instrumentality of the crime. Okay. This is not rocket science. This is not complicated. This is not something that a reasonable prosecutor would not contemplate. Okay. Anyone would know that Sally Port video, facing the right direction, of course, would be critical. And any DA should have known within a week or two of this investigation, they would want to look at that video and they say, why am I missing all these pieces? Why is it facing this? And what a prosecutor who's being honest at that point ought to be doing, if they recognize this, is saying, well, I have real questions now, and now I'm getting concerned that something sinister is afoot. This is not normal. And they didn't do that. And of course, some people believe it's because they're complicit. I don't know, but everything they do just lessens the public confidence in the criminal justice system in that county, whether it's the police, the Canton police, or the Norfolk DA's office. And they just make it worse and worse and worse with all of this stuff that you see happen.
Right. Nothing to see here. We're moving forward on with the trial. It's outrageous. It's been outrageous for too long. And it's just, I can't say anything I've said 100 times, and we've said 100 times, but it's just, it's, I can't say it's unbelievable.
More of the same,
I can only say it's very believable.
It just keeps going on too.
For those who don't know, don't follow every trial, or, you're saying, is this how the system works? No, this is not normal. Okay. This is not how murder trials or high profile homicide trials generally go. There is absolutely nothing normal about how the discovery is going in this case, how they continue to press the case with the evidentiary problems that they have, legal arguments about we're actually on the verge of trying somebody twice for murder after they've been acquitted, turning over this kind of evidence in the middle of trial, bringing in, outside counsel to sit next to inside counsel because no one else will do this case. This is completely not normal.
Yeah.
Everything about this case is not normal.
It's insane. Reasonable doubt's bleeding all over the place. It's evident that she's innocent. It's evident it is a frame job. And I just hope the day comes eventually where the feds just step in and say, hey, you know what? We got everything we need now to put away these people, whomever it is that's responsible at whatever level, and start putting people behind bars, because it's absolute madness. It's absolutely sickening that this can happen to an individual for people that are out there trying to protect their own interests. And it's just, like I said, I can't say anything that hasn't been said 100 times.
A few people have asked about this civil trial. If Karen Reed is not found guilty, what happens with the O'Keefe civil case?
They could keep going, but I mean, it's a loser. I mean, it's kind of a loser anyway. Emotionally, I understand. Look, I feel different about the O'Keefes and maybe some other people do. I mean, look, they lost a family member. They've been led to believe that she did it. Maybe they truly believe she did. They're pissed off. They're emotional. They get bad advice. They're certainly getting strung along by a lot of these agitators online. To me, they get a pass, generally speaking. But when you start seeing some of these cases that they're bringing and blaming, it's a terrible lawsuit. It's a complete loser. It's going nowhere. She's not going to get convicted. And again, I really think the thing that I find interesting about them is that, as far as I can tell, they've never publicly challenged some of this and kind of looked and said, why didn't you guys secure a crime scene? Why didn't you go door to door? Like, again, even if they think Karen Reed is guilty, they must recognize that the shitty investigation and weird conduct by the witnesses, it's going to prevent her from getting convicted anyway. But I don't know why they wouldn't look into this more, just in terms of looking at the other side of this and saying, maybe we're not getting all the answers we want. I don't know.
I wonder if they won't come around after, if she's found not guilty. I would not be surprised to hear them saying some of that stuff, like, very publicly, especially about how shitty the investigation was.
Well, they did replace Lally. I mean, kind of. I mean, that's the change they made, but they didn't get rid of him. So, I would think that they were not happy, but, again, I look at this differently, just because, having defended many people charged with murder, some of whom actually are innocent, not all, obviously, but, certain cases of mine, one in particular comes to mind, where going back and forth up and down the New York court system for years and years in seeking to undo a wrongful conviction, the victim's family would just never open their eyes to what was really plainly obvious, because they were emotionally bought in and had been told things. And you know what? I respected that. I mean, they were wrong, but I mean, they were entitled, and it is what it is. You can't know what they're going through,
We found out from Kimba, her son, the MSNBC, what am I saying? The NBC Boston Sports.
NBC Sports Boston, yeah.
Thank you.
No politics.
No
now
problem.
you
Screw that up. The other NBC, the
I'm
sports
writing it
one.
down. Justin Legger. I don't know who that is, but I'm going to look him up. Maybe it'll look familiar. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
That's a tough one. NBC Sports Boston, right?
Yeah.
That should never be three things in a name. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The sports network it's not great.
Yeah, I think they just got rid of some shows and some. Yeah, they're not doing well.
Those things are. Yeah, none of those things are.
No one watches that crap.
No, you watch.
Yeah.
I mean, look. I mean, first of all, so I'm not in. I'm not in Boston. So when I watch NBC Sports, whatever, it's League Pass. It's through a pay app. To watch out of market games. But I don't know who actually watches NBC Sports when it's not a game. I mean, I would think pretty much nobody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I hope I didn't insult him.
No, but he's on the Celtics beat, so
it's still TV. TV is still big. I mean, they do have the Celtics, right? I'm sure his reporting gets seen a lot because of the Celtics. So
right.
Yeah. I mean, the Celtics are obviously their golden ticket, especially right now with there, except for the last month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The sellers will turn it up once we get to March.
When it matters, I know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, the playoffs. What about the guy from the library saying this is not the disc I gave to them? That was testified. That was crazy.
It is a problem. It is pathetic. And at this point, though, like Mazza said earlier, what ought to be unbelievable is totally believable.
Yeah.
And at this point, it doesn't even affect you. I mean, it's like we all forgot about that because
Yeah,
more.
spent so much shit like that.
But I would tell you in isolation, if we had a case where they're talking about video evidence and you call the town technician and he's like, that's not that. No, I've never seen anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, that's what would be the big thing of the case. But this is like, there's so much you just forget about it.
You watch this kind of stuff, and in your mind, you hear like the Benny Hill music. You know, it just this is just ridiculous. Yeah, you won't have him at high speed running around chasing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Song to use.
For the British friends and the people of a certain age, Benny Hill.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I know Benny Hill. I thought it was. Yeah, I like Benny Hill.
It is funny.
The British
humor.
Yeah, British. What about this one? Contact FBI Director Kash Patel and DOJ AG Pam Bondi about the corruption leaders of mass.
Well, first of all, again, putting politics aside, neither one of those individuals has yet been confirmed. So right now they are not literally in government. So at least wait a week or two, if that's even an option. I mean, look, calling the Justice Department about corruption is fine, but what I would localize it more. You go to the U.S. Attorney's Office for that stuff. If you call DOJ Central in Washington about a allegedly corrupt local prosecutor in Massachusetts, to the extent they even look at it, they're going to steer you to the Civil Rights Division or Public Corruption Unit of the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Stacy says, first off, I love the 3Ms. What is in Judge Bev's future?
Cape Cod.
A very messy evidentiary hearing on a motion to dismiss, and depending on the outcome of that, a murder or not murder trial, depending on the outcome of another court's decision, and at some point another trial. I mean, that's.
Here's another one, thing we haven't talked about tonight, but just another crazy thing. Every time the Commonwealth cops had a chance to make a right choice or wrong one, they consistently always took the wrong one. Solo cops, the logs, the photos. I mean, just.
But it's the first one too. I mean, even before all those are valid points, but it's the first one, which was nobody secured a crime scene.
Correct.
You can make that argument as the first point in time where this case ended. I mean, to not even attempt to, if they secure a crime scene, all right, and keep it secured properly, there's no chance for any of these shenanigans, whether you believe them or not, about taillight pieces and things like that. If the crime scene is properly secured at all times and there's credible evidence to support that, and then they find 45 pieces of taillight, well, then the prosecution in that situation, that hypothetical, might have a very strong argument that's there naturally. But because they abandon the crime scene without even trying to maintain it, they have no way to know one way or the other. And it's just one of these, get out of here. You guys joke. And here comes the Benny Hill music again. No crime scene, dead police officer on another police officer's lawn. And a couple of inches of snow, we're done here.
Right. Then they want to come back to the crime scene later and start to pick apart. Oh, well, we found taillight here and this and that there. It's no. If you closed it, it's closed. That's it. You don't start adding to it on after the fact. It's just on and on it goes. Well, we found taillight. I was driving down the street one day and happened to notice taillight.
Go talk to real cops. I know you spoke to my friend there who was, the lieutenant in the NYPD that we used to work for 100 years ago together.
Great.
Chris, other people, maybe he's listening now. Chris, hello. But just even locally, it doesn't have to be like New York City cops. Go talk to any cop who's not in the Dedham area state police.
That's a big thing that I brought. They need someone like that as a witness, the defense. Like they need someone that's like going to call that shit out like that. You know, even not going in the house. That to me could have been part of the crime scene that wasn't secure. They never even did that. So I feel like they need a cop like that on the stand to go through.
It's interesting because, and again,
yeah.
one of the things I saw on Twitter this morning, because I did not watch, but I know from that thing last night where, you know, the agitators were talking to Martin. There was apparently some kind of debate about whether they had probable cause to go into Bryant Albert's home after they found. Now, again, I don't know how much detail they got into, so if I'm off, sorry. But to me, that everybody's missing the point. That's an interesting discussion. You can make points pro and con against that. The more important issue in the context of this case is there's no intellectual curiosity on the part of the police officer to investigate what the hell happened. Is everybody okay? Did anybody see anything? You're looking for witnesses. You're looking for information, not whether you had a legal right to kick the door down. Forget that. They didn't even want to know why this man was lying on the lawn in inappropriate clothes, minus a shoe, looking like he'd been beaten to a pulp, holding or next to him having broken glass. And nobody wanted to know, is anyone hurt? Did he come from in the house? Nothing. It was just, we knew it was a car accident. So they did nothing. And when they get a chance to sum up on all of this, how is she getting convicted on a reasonable doubt standard? And I'm sorry that triggers these people, but that's how it works in a courtroom when you get away from your Twitter bubble. And if you want to tell everyone how guilty she is, that's fine, but argue with facts. Ready for this? Facts, logic. I know logic is a big word they throw around in the attic, but logic also requires getting rid of the reasonable doubt. And if you're not going to talk about that, and all you want to do are talk about like key cycles and nothing else, you know, no one's buying that.
Yeah, nobody.
You know, and then there was a video that Aiden had posted once that was with Richie, and they were they went to a door nearby 34 Fairview and said, "Hey, did the police ever knock on your door, ask you if there's any security footage, ring footage that you might have had that you could have submitted to the police? And did they ever knock on your door?" And they said no, that no one ever came to the door, which is a very notable thing, because you think that in police work, especially with a dead Boston police officer or dying police officer on the front lawn, you think that you want to go ahead and not only knock on the door of 34 Fairview, but go across the street, go to multiple houses, talk to people, see what they got, do a thorough job, not just kind of do cleanup and collect evidence only within a certain amount of area on the front lawn. Well, we'll investigate the front lawn. Let's not do a simple, hey, what have you seen? Knock on the front door. Hey, what have you seen? They didn't even do that. And go ahead.
No, sorry. I just said what you're talking about in police parlance, they call a neighborhood canvas. That's the word they canvas the neighborhood. That is police officer 101. Okay. You don't need to be a first grade detective to know this. You could be in the police academy and
be the patrolman to do that.
Well, right. I'm going lower. You could be a cadet.
Cadet. I mean, the first day, that's
you could be the deputy.
You could be a middle school student. Say,
exactly.
Every kid knows what a ring camera is today. And the fact that they never did that is in and of itself so inherently suspicious, not just incompetent. It makes no sense that at no time, and when I say at no time, not that day, not a week, not even a year.
Never, never.
Why?
And only Aiden did it.
Why?
Aiden Richie. Aiden Microdoth. Oh.
Yep.
There's another comment here. This is one I want to get to. I rewatched Higgins' testimony today. Can anyone explain why there was a sidebar regarding his where he was in Sharon when he was questioned?
I remember people speculating about this back then. Some people speculated it was like a rehab facility or something, and that it might have been protecting, that. Although, I'm speculating what others speculated. I don't know. I truly have no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea either. It could be that. I mean, that would make sense to protect something like that. That's private, that if it was health related, they might want to. It's not important to the case either, right? I mean,
well, I guess the problem is we don't know. I mean, presumably it's not important, but without knowing what it is, I don't know. I mean, if it turned out that, he was there, I mean, maybe it was his lawyer's house, and they don't want to give the info. I mean, I hate speculating, but
yeah, I do too.
Yeah. Yep.
I appreciate the question though, because we all want to know. But we just don't know. Amber says, do you think Pam Bondi or the new Mass AG, who's that Andrea Campbell, are watching, aware of what's going on? I'm pretty sure Mass AG Campbell is, but I don't know about
I mean, look, again, she's not yet confirmed. But yeah, I mean, the Attorney General of the United States, who obviously runs the Justice Department, would most likely be aware of a very, very high profile murder case in which there are central issues of alleged systemic corruption by a DA's office, potentially the state police, a local police department. And oh, by the way, our Justice Department also just indicted the next town over a cop for murdering a child that, the same DA's office with the same group of detectives swept under the rug. Yes, I think that they would be aware of it. Whether it means they do anything about it is a different question, but yeah, that's something they'd be aware of.
It's also this question, does this rise to the level of federal investigation on the investigation? I think they're talking about just this new Sally Port crap that's been going on.
Maybe. I mean, first of all, we don't know what they're doing. What if anything's open, if anything's closed? I mean, we know witnesses testified previously, but if there were any kind of open investigation about misconduct by the police, well, this would be part of that. I mean, this would be interesting. There's allegations that they somehow got rid of, disposed of, and tampered with exculpatory evidence and didn't disclose it before trial. I mean, if there is an investigation in the feds related to corruption and misconduct, and then the defense is alleging more corruption and misconduct, well, then yeah, I mean, that would certainly be noteworthy. But again, whether that leads to anything, that's for somebody who knows what's going on in the inner workings of the U.S. Attorney's Office. I have no idea.
Let's look at this one. Isn't the fact that conflicted CPD had control over the Lexus and video evidence a huge violation? Plus, Mass State Police and Norfolk County District Attorney let them tamper with evidence, ? There was also another question about where is that car right now? Where is the Lexus? I don't know where they're storing it now.
We haven't seen that since they put it outside the house during the trial for their little field trip.
It's a problem. The question that's on the board now. The Canton police have nothing to do with it, yet they suspiciously, in some people's view, bring a vehicle up in a blizzard out of the way when there were many other places they could have gone, and they put it in the Sally Port of the conflicted out police department, which just happens to be the place where the video goes haywire and they don't have it, and where all this other stuff happens. Yeah, that's another one of these what a hell of a coincidence things. Yes.
All right.
I don't know what this one is about. Thousands of emails and phone calls matter to the FBI, DOJ. Disagree with Mark. And Caitlin Albert works for the state attorney's office, the AG's office.
I think she's saying that when I said, do I think that the Attorney General of the United States and the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts would be aware of this, that she's saying they don't give a shit, I believe is what the comment is saying.
I think the AG doesn't give a shit, not because of Caitlin Albert, just because of politics. And I think it's just easier for them to pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, it's messy, and that's right.
Yeah. But we've had a lot of super chats, comments. I'm trying to read the regular chats too. It's hard to keep up with everything. Here's a question. What happens if they find proof of Berkowitz being involved in wrongdoing?
Well, that's a problem. Obviously not a problem to him personally. He's no longer among the living. I mean, he passed away, so there's nothing you can do to him. But again, he was working for the Canton police. So in the context of discovery violations and Brady violations, the prosecutor would be responsible for his conduct. And that could lead to a Brady violation and could damage the case, could lead to sanctions and whatnot. So if there is proof that Berkowitz did wrongdoing and it's material and relevant, and there's a possibility that it could prejudice the defense, that's a very serious problem for the DA, if that's the case.
That's the case. It's a comment about Judge Cano. It says, the terrifying thing is the judge is head of the board in charge of deciding what is best evidence and protocol for admissibility.
Well, not keeping a chain of custody and having a protocol for preserving relevant video and relevant evidence and turning it over and doing all those things, I can tell you is not best practice and not proper protocol for admissibility. But in terms of what the judge's role and I don't know.
Yeah.
You'd think, just knowing that makes me think maybe she's going to take this seriously because she's the one who's in charge of that crap.
Yeah.
Again, if they allege and back up what they are alleging in a motion and prove it and establish that it was intentional and that the defense has been severely prejudiced and that the evidence is relevant, then the case has to be dismissed. If that's what happens, that's a high burden. I'm not predicting.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not going to be easy to prove that.
No, and listen, no judge, and this is not a Canoni thing. No judge wants to dismiss a murder case on a discovery violation. Okay, but you should not assume that she is so corrupt and so whatever that if it becomes clearly established that crazy shenanigans were happening and it was done intentionally with an attempt to corrupt justice, that this case will not end if they prove that.
I see it happening if they prove it. I agree. I think that this judge will do the right thing if she has to.
Again, I'm not predicting it. I don't know where the evidence.
We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if they're going to be able to get to that, you overcome that burden, right?
Look, if I'm the defense, I want Lally, I want the people in the Canton police, Rafferty, whoever else was involved in all this video. I want Buchanan. I want to know when he saw the video and if he spoke to Lally about it. I want Buchanan. I want to understand, why did you say that this was a fair and accurate video? Is this what Lally told you? I want Tully, who gave testimony about seeing video or doing things, and he gave testimony that made it sound like that Rafferty had someone go back to the original video and get him something right before trial, which can't be if the 30-day
2
rule.
weeks. Yeah. 30 days. Exactly. Yeah. I can't wait. I want to see Rafferty on the stand. That would be amazing because we've seen her at the select boards. She is just something else.
Piece of work.
My recollection is, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Someone will correct me. It's not a gotcha thing. Just correct me. I thought Tully said that he saw a video shortly before trial. So again, way past the 30 days, and that he saw the video because he communicated with Rafferty, who caused it to be given to him. And the implication was that it came from like the original video. And if that turns out to be the case, how is that possible?
Yeah. How is it? Are they going to blame it on the dead man Berkowitz?
I know, right? You wonder if they use him as a scapegoat.
That is a common thing.
Yeah.
That is a common thing.
Of course. You blame it on the dead guy. That's always. Here's a plowing question. If you're plowing the road, why was there no taillight found down the street if he was hit on the road?
Correct. That taillight would have fallen for the most part, directly right on the road where it was plowed, where the vehicle was parked, obviously on the road. The vehicle was not parked on the lawn, so a majority of that taillight would have gone downward, maybe some of it outward to a degree, but that would have all been plowed, and taken who knows how far, and eventually it would have melted, and someone would have walked outside their house and said, what is this all over my yard, or what's this all over the street? It's a great point.
Some jurors may question that, and some people, observers, might say you can't plow anything down the street if it's not on the street.
Right. All that taillight just happened to land in the yard, not an ounce of it in the street. It's just the arguments here, that can be made. It's when you look at it, anything in actuality, it does not make sense. Karen Reed didn't do this.
None of it does.
No.
The investigation doesn't make sense. The evidence. Here's a good question. Will the jury, I think we've kind of answered this, but I think it's worth repeating. Will the jury in the second trial learn that the inverted video was introduced as accurate video in the first trial in an attempt to mislead the jury?
So let's leave out the last part, in an attempt to mislead the first jury, because that's argument and opinion, and that would be sustained. But in a fact, you save that for argument. But in terms of offering evidence in the second trial, will it come out that video was introduced and that it was inverted, and that Buchanan said it was accurate, and then he originally identified himself in Proctor and then kind of walked away from that? 1,000%. That's coming in. Good luck explaining that if you're the prosecution and that witness.
Absolutely. The question is too about, I think, Jim McCabe. A badly injured friend's body is found on your sister's front lawn, and you don't go running in her house or to the door.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. One of the things I found more interesting was her demeanor in real time on the body worn camera and everything else versus her demeanor in the courtroom. Okay. In her demeanor in real, and again, people react differently to trauma. I get it. Her demeanor, though, in real time, and this is no pun intended because it was freezing cold out, was cold. There's a man in the street and didn't identify him, didn't express any real concern, was very just nonchalant.
Yes.
Then when getting cross-examined, lashed out, that was my friend, and we were up.
Right.
She was hot.
She was
very hot.
She was
angry.
angry.
On the stand.
Right.
Rehearsed.
Heated.
But it was rehearsed.
Right.
Yeah.
Is,
Even Alan Jackson called that out. The last part was a little rehearsed.
All can react differently. I get it, but I thought that the dichotomy between her behavior in real life and the coldness, which, by the way, with the other people too, the guy never came in the house.
Yeah, that was her husband.
Sure.
Whereas later on, it became, rally for John,
justice for JJ.
Which is
fine.
fine.
How do you do that though? Because that might be touchy. Like, I feel like if you're the defense, that would be a good thing to point to, like the difference.
Without being touchy, I absolutely would have examined her and said, and they probably will the second time around, this was your close friend. You were very upset when this was happening. Right. This was shocking and whatever. And then establish, yet you called him, there's a man, there's a guy, there's this, that in real time.
Could you say, why didn't you call him Officer John O'Keefe? Why didn't you call him John, your friend? You could say that, right? I mean, that's.
Although that might lead.
But that's where I think I'd be too rough on them. Yeah, that's.
Well, there's cross-examination is an art form. There is a way to do it. And I think you do what lawyers call pull the string. You set them up with how emotional it was, how much you liked him, how much you cared for him. And then you just say, when you refer to him as a man, and then leave it alone. Don't argue with her. You made your point. Jury gets it. Right. And then summation, go back and say, does this make sense to you? It's not worth arguing with her, having her get her nails out and come at you swinging, ready to lash out. But you do establish that, notwithstanding all this emotion and how upset, he's just, a guy lying in the yard.
Additionally, she seemed to have everything she needed to say very deliberately stated when speaking with the police officers, everything she did that night. Yet when she was in court and on the trial, she was having to ask for everything she said to either be read back, provided to her so she could read that to ensure what she had said. Why would she have forgotten that? It makes no sense.
Her demeanor was terrible as a witness. The other thing which is very interesting is this. I mean, they obviously knew that John O'Keefe was a cop. Yeah. And I mean, McCabe knew that, obviously. And what is the one thing you would say to a 911 operator that would guarantee the quickest response.
My friend, a Boston cop, is
Well,
dead lying in the snow,
Which
right?
is more likely to elicit a quicker response? Door A is there's a guy passed out on the lawn at 34 Fairview, or there is a Boston police officer, my friend. Oh my God, he's a cop. He's on another cop's lawn. We don't know what happened. He looks bad.
That's right.
Which of those is going to elicit a quicker response? You don't have to answer that because it speaks.
No brainer. It's a no.
She didn't even say 34. She said 32.
Everyone would do that too.
She
Like
said
everyone, anyone that hangs out with cops, you're gonna say that. Anyone who says, like, you know, anyone that hangs out, like, you know, my family has some friends that, you know, are cops, and they would say that instantly. They would throw that cop card out. Anyone would.
In that situation, life and death, anybody would. No question.
Yeah.
I mean, generally, you don't. If you're friendly with cops, you try not to play that. You know what I mean? But life or death, you would. You definitely would.
No. You're going to make it clear that he's your friend and he's a cop.
Get down here right now. And you think that she would have more hysteria. She'd be more shocked by the situation and not necessarily poised. Contrary to her was the behavior of Karen, who was necessarily and accurately erratic and out of control emotionally, in the way that a woman that was dating a man who loved them and was shocked by what she was seen happen would react. Karen's behavior is consistent through and through with how someone in that situation would react.
Yeah.
She's having raw emotion. And it's a lot of things too. I mean, the other thing that, you know, there's this phone call that I guess, what was it? Like that Karen Reed's voicemail was on. So I picked up this call where Jennifer McCabe called her sister from the car, and it's like picked up on the voicemail, and it's very quiet. I mean, it's deliberate whispering. Why?
Yeah.
What's the secret?
Weird?
What's the secret? Exactly.
What's the secret?
Right.
Help.
Right.
Come out.
Right.
Do something.
Right.
None of this makes any sense.
None.
Someone said this is a good comment. This is speculation, but could be true. Say Sharon is where the federal office was located that he went to.
Okay.
I mean, the feds don't want people to know where their office is. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, that maybe that could be the case.
Yeah.
Could be.
Another comment about Jen. They said, how did she know his condition when he hadn't got out of the car to see him?
Can't answer that. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know.
We've had a lot of super chats. I try to keep up with all of them, but it's very difficult when these two guys are on the show. I want to thank you so much. I think we're already overtime. We're over our 2 hours. We usually do 2 hours. We're at 2 hours and 11 minutes. So I want to thank everyone who's been super chatting, and all the people, all the regular people in the chat too. Thank you so much. We've had a lot of people watching tonight. Any final words? Let's go to Mazza Media. Sure. Anything you want to bring home, talk about, discuss? I know you got some shows upcoming. People better follow you on Twitter and your YouTube, Mazza Media. What do you have for us tonight?
Well, I can tell you, just continue to donate to Karen's Defense Fund. That's the cornerstone of everything that's, raising funds for her, helping her continue her fight against this corruption is the number one thing you can do. Another thing that's been great is the standouts. The standouts have been phenomenal. An amazing standout almost a week ago now that went down in various towns in Massachusetts, states in New England, other states as well, and I believe another country as well this past weekend, which was fantastic. It's continue like a lot of discussion that's been had recently is that essentially this is a campaign. It's a campaign for innocence in a fight against injustice. And Karen and her defense team have done a phenomenal job, continue to do a phenomenal job, and are going to continue to see this through. I have pretty high hopes this year that this is going to end well for Karen, and I think we're going to see some really positive results throughout this year. I think that even despite all the corruption and tangled webs and everything that's been formed against her to try to hold her back and keep her in the spotlight of someone that's an accused murderer is going to eventually come to a stop. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I just kind of foresee it. I just starting to feel more and more optimistic lately. I don't know why, but the past couple of weeks, I've just felt like, I don't know, something's going to turn here. And I don't know how, but she's going to overcome this. And I don't think it's going to end this time the same way it ended before. And I think the defense is doing a lot of homework. They've always done a lot of homework, but they're doing homework in different ways than they did during the first trial. And I think they're really going to have a very concentrated approach. If this thing does hit another trial, if the feds don't step in, and they're going to really, like Mark Bederow said many times, they're going to bring in new witnesses, angle this thing from a whole different perspective, including bringing in basically people that were in the bar that night, or bar owners at the Waterfall, or C.F. McCarthy's, to also testify further to how many drinks Karen was served, how much she drank, and really start to go after that too, as her alcohol level, and kind of try to debunk the fact that she was ever drunk. I think that's going to be a big piece of the upcoming trial as well. But I am, this has been very dragging on all of us. It really has. It's been mentally draining for years. It's gone on a long time. I never thought it would go on this long. I always thought that it would have ended in one trial, and then we'd kind of move on to other things and watch as Karen kind of pursued people with lawsuits, that this thing would kind of go down that road. It's been draining, but I just kind of want to share with everybody, continue to just hold your head up high, stay focused. If you need to take a break every now and then and rest and relax, or take a day off from this, do it. Do whatever you can to get through this. It's going to cut just like last time around. The trial built up, and then all of a sudden there it was, and all of a sudden there it went. And it's going to be the same thing right now. This thing's coming quick. April's almost 2 months away, and maybe it gets pushed back. I don't know, but this thing's coming quick. But continue to support each other, back each other up. Again, if you guys need to take a day off to relax, I do that myself occasionally. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, take a quick little break, do that, relax, keep the brains fresh, nice and relaxed, poised, confident, and strong. And we're all in this to support Karen together. And let's continue to do that, have each other's backs, back each other up. And that's what's been so great about the Karen Read movement since the beginning, is that absolute support for Karen, her family, the attorneys, Aiden, and so many other people, including each other. And we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to fight and back each other up, and continue to move forward through this thing together. This is going to be an absolute victory at some point in the future. I think it's coming soon, and we're all going to be elated when that day comes, and no one more than Karen Read and her family, that's for sure.
I think you're right. I think it's either going to be dismissed or not guilty this year. Something's going to break here. I love the optimism, but I just feel it. I feel like that's going to happen.
Same here.
Attorney Bederow, what's your final thoughts tonight?
I always have a particular interest in corruption by prosecutors, alleged corruption, and complying with discovery and Brady, and following through, being fair, wearing the white hat like they're supposed to, that sort of thing. And this case has had a problem with that from the minute I started watching. But now it's been placed, or it's coming to be placed front and center shortly before trial. There's probably going to be testimony from prosecutors and whatnot, where the court is going to have to determine whether they intentionally or otherwise tampered with evidence, suppressed evidence, destroyed evidence, spoliated it, as lawyers call it, any word you want to use. And that is going to be really, really interesting to see, because if that evidence comes out, everyone has been watching this case and has just such a gross view of this whole spectacle for going on however many years, whether you think it's a good case or a bad case. And if it comes out and plays out, on court TV, law and crime, where prosecutors and cops are testifying about whether, and the evidence is supporting whether or not they intentionally screwed around with video, which was central to the biggest issue in the case. What did the frickin' taillight look like at the right time? I mean, the case is over, literally, with that one fact. Yep. That's going to put the judge in a really tough spot. And I'm fascinated, because so many of you have just been adamant about where she is on this. And that will be on live TV, with that kind of evidence, with these lawyers as skilled as they are cross-examining these witnesses, about whether the DA will even have the ability, after all of this, to even proceed because of their own alleged misconduct. and it will be fascinating to see what that quantum of proof is, and then what the court does with that. Because if this case ends after all of this, 3.5 years, ends up in a just combustible fire because they screwed around with the Sally Port video and got cute with their obligations, you think it's a scandal now. That'll be, take this scandal and escalate
So
it
true.
so much more. And I'm fascinated that ultimately the issue that could do that, and I'm not making predictions, I want to be clear, we'll have to, the evidence has to come out, and you've got to let the DA respond to any motions and be heard. You got to be fair both ways. But I'm just, this was the issue again that I talked to you guys about so long ago and said, this is what's going to do it. This Sally Port is such a big deal, and I would be driving this home again, and just, and it's kind of interesting that the real issue that may in fact blow it up pre-trial is going to relate to the Sally Port video, which may never have even come up if these people did not inexplicably make a command decision to turn over a freaking reverse video and pass it off.
How dumb was that? That was so self-inflicted.
Reckless, stupid, incompetent, or worse do you have to be? And if that's what does this all in, wow.
I know they didn't need to ever put that in there. That was not anything that was really going to help them. It's weird.
One last point, if I can.
Yes.
And this is for the people who, love to criticize and do all of that. Even if you think she's guilty, you got to be honest to the process. Don't justify turning over video that's missing footage, okay? Don't justify turning over relevant evidence in the middle of trial and saying it's no big deal. Don't justify turning over relevant evidence in the middle of trial that turns out to then be falsified evidence. Don't justify turning over video in the middle of trial that turns out to be falsified evidence and then try to present it as accurate evidence. Don't justify turning over relevant video that could have been used to cross-examine Brian Higgins aggressively 6 months after a trial ended. If you want to believe she's guilty and all that, but be fair to the process. Picture you being in Karen Reed's seat. I know you hate her, but the trial has to be fair, okay? And this process has not been fair. That's not in dispute, and that has nothing to do with guilt or innocence. There's a reason why the American system would rather see 10 people who did it get away and not have one wrongfully convicted. That's why you have such serious due process rules. That's why this has to be done fairly. And this stuff that is surrounding the Sally Port video, it's not being done fairly. And that's just one example. So get over yourself with she did it. Focus on a fair trial and proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's it. That's all this is about.
We had one more question for Attorney Bederow. They want to know where your dogs are, Lola and Winnie, tonight.
Winnie is on the couch, and Lola actually just came in the room and is on the couch in this room. So you want to come over here? Nah, she's kind of, when they get cold outside, they
oh yeah, they don't want to go out.
And there's a fireplace in this room, and you know what that means with a dog, right? Curled up in a ball, and they're not moving.
Oh, that's perfect for them. They got a maid. That's awesome.
Yeah, the dog. No, these dogs live well. They do.
I bet. You are lucky in life if you're a dog at Bederow, I bet. I just have that.
We're like the best place. We're good to our dogs. We are.
Yeah. Awesome. It's been a great show. I want to thank you guys so much for being here. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Mazza Media, follow him, and Bederow Law on Twitter, follow him as well, X. Thank you guys again so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mark. Great to be back with you guys. All right, take care. Free Karen Reed.
Go Celtics for you guys.
Yeah.
What a great time those guys are. Just, it's always great when Bederow and Mazza are on here. I want to thank you all for the super chats. I've just been overwhelmed by them. I hope I got most of them on the screen. We also had some Venmos. I want to thank Todd. Todd just sent $20 on Venmo. He says, appreciate you enabling Mark Bederow to respond tonight. Of course. Janice, she also gave $20 and said, great show as usual. Sandy also sent $10. She said, I think all three of you are awesome. Thank you, Sandy L. Also, Teresa R. She says, 3M's, great show from Lucy Lugnut's elderly mom. She sent $50 on Venmo. Very generous. Thank you so much, Lucy Lugnuts. Well, it's amazing. I was still kicking over Nan Gallagher. The attorney sent us $500 the other day. I guess she sent Mazza like $400 recently too. She's been very generous to Free Karen Reed and everybody. So thank you so much for that. Also, Jessica sent $50 the other day too on a donation. I am just very thankful for you all for supporting us, supporting the show, supporting me. And every time we have the 3Ms, the response is amazing. So I'm very thankful. Brandy sent $10. It looks like last Saturday. I want to make sure I said thank you to her on the Cash App. Thank you so much. Meg sent $10 tonight on the Cash App. Meg M. She says she's a former Bills cheerleader. Let's go Buffalo. I'm looking at her picture. She's oh, wow. You look like a Buffalo Bills former cheerleader. Thank you so much, Meg. That is definitely the first former NFL cheerleader that's ever given me any money on the Cash App. I can guarantee you that. I am very proud of that. Thank you so much, Meg. I love the cheerleaders. Always have. I like their athleticism. I call it a sport. It is definitely a sport. I don't care what anyone says. I even like the guy cheerleaders. Like I'm all about cheerleading. I'm not a cheerleader. I would kill myself. But that's why I love that sport so much, because I think that people look down on it. And when you see them, you're just like, holy shit, I'm a wrestler and I'd be afraid to do half the shit they do. They are. So thank you so much, Meg. I really appreciate that you donated tonight and you're a former Buffalo Bills cheerleader. Mike W, sent $85 on the Cash App. Holy shit, you guys. So generous. I can't even thank you. I'm overwhelmed. And as I noted early in the show tonight, there was some shit going on with me getting a defamation suit filed against me. I am not really worried about it at this point. Definitely working on it. I'm going to have a lot more to say. We're going to go through it very soon when I can. I would expect sometime maybe next week, midweek, maybe end of the week. I don't know. Sometime next week. I'm going to go through everything. Trust me on that. And there's a lot to it, and it's a very interesting situation. And I already think it's breaking my way. So there's a lot to talk about. And there's other stuff going on too. You could tell we're very active with the show and the booking. Sometimes I take a little break or I have a slow week, but consistent, always having good shows. I want to thank Jessica Machado for coming in earlier this week. That was an amazing friggin' show. I feel like we just had two perfect shows. Sometimes I'm not happy with my own performance on the show. I screw up shit, hit the mute button too much. Tonight, no mute issues. No mute issues with Jessica Machado. I think I'm hitting my stride right now. It's feeling good on the show. And a lot of it is because of you, the supporters, the audience. So thank you so much. I had the best 2024. I think 2025 is going to be even better. Like Mazza said tonight, I think in the end, we're going to see an acquittal or a not guilty verdict for Karen Reed. And that's going to be the most amazing thing ever to see. And hopefully then we have a lot of those folks on the show, whether it's Karen, her mom. I would love to have Mrs. Reed or Bill Reed. I love to have them. Nate, so many of them, just to have them on the show, not like, trying to get contributions, not like being limited what they say, being able to tell the real stories. You know what I mean? I can't wait till the gloves are off with them. And not just for my show, but all the shows and just all the media that they'll do. I can't wait till Karen Reed is ungagged. Can you imagine what she's going to say? I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to hearing what Alan Jackson, all of them have to say, all the attorneys. It's going to be an amazing time. So just keep the faith. Like Mazza said, if you need to take a break, take a break. We all need a break sometimes. I think this is the year. I think a lot's going to happen. I'm still reading your super chats. This one. I had a theory about the Commonwealth provided a vid incriminating Higgins. What was the timing of the call to the JFK show? Oh, interesting. Here's a comment. We stand with you, Karen Reed, till the end. Thank you so much. Letteros by Bederow. I love that one. I should have asked him about that account. There's a lot of good accounts now with Bederow. Letteros by Bederow. That is a great YouTube handle. I want to thank our moderators. Stephanie's in the chat tonight. She's been a member for 9 months. She says, Karen Reed, we all know the truth. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you, our moderators. We had Sarah in Shock and Horror tonight. She gave a bunch of memberships. She's a great moderator. Stephanie, Jen O, MJ, and Scott McGinnis. I saw him in the chat as well tonight. I want to thank our moderators. We have the best mod team. I know other YouTubers have great mod teams too. I don't think they're as good as ours. Maybe they're as equal because some of our mods are mods for other chats too and other shows. So, but you know, we're right up there. We have a great moderation team. I really love our mods, and I'm so thankful. I want to thank everyone. I'm just trying to make sure I got all your super chats up. There was one tonight that I decided not to post about Jen McCabe. I just didn't feel like it was appropriate with Bederow here. Call me wimp. But sometimes people get a little rough, and I get it. You don't like Jen McCabe. I hope that person's not too mad at me that I didn't post that up. And like I said, I'm going to try to post them all. Anyone that sends us money, we'll post the super chat at least for a second up. Oh, thank you so much for this one. Boston Brandy. I met Boston Brandy the other day at one of the standouts. Thank you so much for the donation tonight. I really appreciate you. She's also, I believe, on Facebook and Twitter. Follow her. Glenn Lake, I got to know. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nikki. We did ask that question tonight. Doesn't it feel like they're going to try to blame it on him? No. Thank you, MC. Thank you, Glenn Lake, again. Glenn Lake is just hooking us up. Thank you so much, Glenn. Thank you, Shelly. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Nightclubs. Thank you, Della. Thank you, Della, all the time. Thank you so much. Good questions, too. Thank you, Rock. What is this one? I'm getting a glare again. I have to look. I think it's Rock Show. Yeah, Rock Show. I was going to say, is it Rock Shaw or Rock Show? Stacy, thank you. Thank you, Edward. Thank you, Della, Siobhan. Thank you, Texas Prime, Sarah and Shock and Horror. Thank you, Romy. Thank you, Nashley. Nashley66. Amber, thank you. Glenn, thank you again. Thank you, Catering Wench. And Kat. And Unapologetically Authentic, thank you so much. Like that. I like people being authentic, being their true selves. Thank you, some guy with cancer. Oh, I hope you beat it. Thank you, Kimba again, and Siobhan and Rock Show. I see the same ones over and over again. You guys are so generous. You ladies are generous. Thank you. Not today. I hope I got them all up. Maria, thank you. Thank you, Mark Reardon. Thank you, Maria, again. Thank you, Edward, again. And how's long? Thank you. And Britt Happett, check her out. She's got a show as well. I like Britt. She's great. She just posted this AKR comment thread The ends justify the means. That is so true. The people who are against Karen Reed, they always think that the ends justify the means. That is so true, Brett. Check out Britt. She's got a YouTube. She's also on Twitter. She's great. Britt Happens. Thank you so much, Britt. I'm just a girl in the world. Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Kimba again. Thank you, Texas Prime. AJ's Red Eye. I thought I was going to get out of here, but I have to read every super chat. Thank you, Nina. Thank you. I got to know. I wonder how long it's going to take me to get through it. Just reading the name of every super chat here. Thank you, Marie. Thank you, Sweet Sue. Thank you, Romy, again. She's very generous. Thank you, Romy. Never Better. Thank you, Edward, again. Kevin from South Boston. This is the one I did put up earlier. Thank you, Kevin from South Boston. I wonder if Kevin from South Boston is a decorated dude. Curious Wendy. Thank you, TMC_617. Again, thank you, LTL Media, Joe Flipahead, Dragonfly, Patches O'Halloran. O'Hallahan? Sorry. Thank you, Loud Moose. And thank you, Deller, again. I think I got them all. Woo. And, of course, there's a few more that came in. Thank you, Sebastian. And thank you, Carol. And I'm just making sure that no more Venmos or Cash Apps came in because I want to make sure I thank everybody. It looks like a few more did come in. Wow. I want to thank Janice on the Venmo. She says, great show as usual. She sent $20. Thank you so much, Janice. Thank you, Judith. Judith sent $100. She had 5 stars. Judith B. Thank you so much. That is wicked generous. You are amazing, Judith. She's also on Twitter, I believe. I follow her. Carolyn, thank you so much. Carolyn F. She says, thanks, Mike. Great show with the 3Ms. Keep up the good work. She sent $10. Thank you so much, Carolyn. And Virginia also sent $25. She says, I watch you all the time and I appreciate what you do. All right. Thank you so much. I don't know when we're going to be back, but I know we'll be back soon. I think maybe Sunday night. Either Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. There's going to be a standout for John O'Keefe on his birthday. And we're definitely going to be covering that. We're gonna have big standout in Canton coming up, and we're gonna be having some guests on. I think Sunday night about it. We'll see. We're still to be determined. I may be on the Mazza show on Monday night. There's going to be an upcoming show with Mazza Media that I'm going to be on, and I'm looking forward to that. I've never been on his channel, and it's time to be a guest on Mazza's show. So I'm looking forward to that, too. Have him ask us some questions. That'll be fun, like a role reversal. Again, I want to thank Attorney Mark Bederow. I want to thank Mazza Media. I also want to thank all the different attorneys and people in the community who supported me this week when I posted about what was going on with my situation with the defamation case there. A lot of attorneys have reached out and offered support, including Attorney Bederow, his friend Rich Vestine, Brian Barea. I could go on and on. I just want to thank the legal community, especially, for just giving me advice and pointing me in the right direction. It really means a lot to me. All right, I will see you soon. And hopefully, I'm going to get to cover the defamation case, what's actually going on, how that started very soon. Because I can't wait to talk about it, honestly, but I'm just being cautious. I'm doing it the right way. It will come, and it will be fun. I'll see everyone soon. Thank you so much again. Have a great night. Thank you to our mods. Have a great rest of your weekend. Stay safe and warm.